Eugene Debs once said, sooner or later, every war of trade becomes a war of blood. Keep this in mind as we discuss today US-China trade talks that just concluded recently in Alaska. My name is Dr. David Oualaalou.
And my name is Dr. Ross Stewart.
And you are watching Geopolitics in Conflict.
David, the second round of talks between China and the United States has just concluded in Anchorage, Alaska. And China's CPC Politburo member, Yang Jiechi, and State Controller and Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with the Secretary of State Antony Blinken and other U.S. officials. How do you think that went?
Well, the best way to describe the talks, Ross, I will use the term acrimonious. That's the reason being because it was some, if I may use the term spicy, if you will, some heated conversations between the two sides. But that's, you know, what was striking to me, and I looked at the transcript of the talks, it was the way how the Chinese felt that they were insulted. Well, rightly so, because when you invite a guest, you don't insult them. And what I'm referring to here, just for you to know, I'm referring to the idea that the United States imposed sanction
the day before
the Chinese delegation came over to the U.S.
As you know, I've continued to study Mandarin and have done a deep dive into Chinese history in an attempt to really understand the culture. To say that this was an insult is an understatement. This is a direct assault inside China, a culture. It just is not done.
Yeah, that's not how you deal with the culture, with the guests and so forth. So, but the idea is much bigger than this. You know, now we're not talking about just trade negotiations, because this usually, the way I look at it, if I am to analyze this, it gives me an idea how tense those talks is going to progress. In other words, how the relationship between the United States and China moving forward the next few years.
What we're seeing, I think, is real patience on the Chinese part. The fact that they put up with this. And we know that they have teams of negotiators that stay steady. For example, the recent one where took 7 years to come to an agreement. You know that was acrimonious. But they finally came to something they could both live with. As opposed to the United States, it has a new team every year or every time there's an administration. Mm-hmm. And so they have to come up to speed without much help.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is one thing, you're absolutely correct, and the one you're referring to is the recent agreement between China and the European Union.
7 years.
7 years in talks, and the same team was dealing with that. But what I wanted to mention, Ross, was the idea of how, for example, the Chinese negotiators approaching those trade talks. Usually, China thinks in terms of what are our weaknesses and strengths. And what it became clear to me is that these talks, the indication of what just took place in Anchorage, it gives me an idea that China has entered those talks from a position of strength.
Well, what we know is 2020. Which major economy prospered?
China.
And what we see is the digital yuan. What we see is the Belt and Road Initiative. What we see is investment agreements between the European Union and China. It just goes on and on.
The digital yuan. We look at also the BRI, and we look at also the agreement with the European Union, and also the expansion in Africa.
And Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
We're looking at all these things. And China comes to these negotiations with really unprecedented power.
That is correct, and this is where I do believe that these talks that just concluded in Alaska is an indication for what lies ahead. Yes, both countries can come to some sort of an agreement regarding some issues like
global,
like climate change.
Like global climate change.
Yeah, but that's, you know, to China, yeah, sure, we can talk about climate change, but if we're talking about the economy in itself, China has the leverage, you know. And what was interesting about all this, Ross, is that both parties did not talk about the $350 billion in tariffs. And it tells you right there where the priorities are.
Well, what was talked about was what China's doing to some of its minorities, human rights, as if the United States was anything but innocent.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. With all the regime change and all that stuff, and I could see why the Chinese were very, very strong coming back at the Secretary of State for his statement saying that, yeah, all our allies are telling us that, you know, democracy and human rights and so forth. Yeah, I understand all that argument, but that's not going to cut it with the Chinese right now, because they are in a different position right now. They are in a position of strength as far as how their economy is moving forward.
They're also in a position of strength in that their population supports the government.
Well, you're absolutely correct about that. If you look at the recent survey that was conducted by the Elderman, and we're going to have a link at the bottom of the description on the screen for the survey, and indicates that about 82% of the Chinese trust their government.
And being in China and talking to the Chinese people, it's clear they really do support their government. They say such things as Mao Zedong, he gave the land back to the people. They're very proud of it. They're very proud of him and what he's done for them. And we also see that Xi Jinping has really pulled a lot of people out of significant poverty. And so the lives of the Chinese people really are improving. And they have confidence in their government because they're getting good results.
That's what that explains those numbers. 82% of the Chinese believing in the government, in comparison to, for example, Canada has about 53. Australia and the US has about
47. And the UK is 42.
So that tells you right there. I mean, for us here in the US, we knew this way back, that the trust in the government is going down anyway, because you got bureaucrats in Washington that they care less for what's going on.
David, what do you think of Meng Wanzhou's situation?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Just for our viewers to know, how do you pronounce it, Ross?
Meng Wanzhou.
Yeah. She is the daughter of the Huawei founder and also the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, who was detained by the Canadians in Vancouver in 2018. And by the way, it became an issue now for the RCMP, the Royal
Canadian Mounted
Police, an equivalency to the FBI here, that there've been some mishandling of her case. What has not been disclosed is that a document was leaked out of the White House indicating that the United States asked Canada to arrest her so she can be used as a bargain chip in the trade talks. And now it looks like it's backfiring.
Well, it's a boomerang arrow, and Canada's caught it right where it hurts.
Yeah, because Canada now is having issues trade with China, and second, 2 of its citizens are detained in China. So you can just see. And there was no talk about it during these trade talks. Usually in trade talks, you talk about economic issues, of course, but you address also some pending issues between the two countries. Not in this case. So it's very different. And this is where I see how those talks is going to be very tense moving forward.
What would you say is the bottom line here, David?
Well, the bottom line is that China entered those talks from position of strength. And to me, it means the explanation I will give to that is now it gives them confidence to realize that we are on our way to overtake the US economy, and of course expanding far beyond what we've realized. Because mind you that only a decade ago the West was saying it will take China about 3 to 4 decades before its economy catch up to the...
They were not accurate.
They were not.
They're knocking on the door of being equivalent even right now.
Exactly. And we in the West having a hard time accepting the rise of China as a power.
Here's what we see pretty much as what we all ought to be paying attention to. We have a capitalist, communist regime going on in China. And say, well, we disagree with that. That's not the point. It's there, and it's going to stay there. And our job, and oh, by the way, and they have a consistent plan. Year after decade after who knows how long, the plan stays the same. And the players stay the same. We in the West have a real problem in that bickering in the legislature. Narrow self-interest. Not paying attention to what's good for the economy, not paying attention to what's good for the American people. What we have is a Congress that is very busy paying attention to petty squabbles and what's good for them. What we're recommending is let your legislators know.
Yeah. Well, of course, Ross, as you suggested, that China's rise, it's based on a strategy. This strategy didn't happen last year. This strategy has been in work for the last 40 years. So, and this is why we're going to be seeing or hearing China this, China that. And again, we are not advocating for China. It's just we are saying what's pragmatic and what's reality is. So, usually policymakers will be saying this too much to distract the masses from the core issues that we have here at home.
No matter what's going on, someone has to be to blame.
You're absolutely
correct. As opposed
correct.
to, what are we going to do about it?
You're right. And we do have enough issues to be dealing with here in America.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other videos. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
And as always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.